There are stories we tell to scare ourselves, and then there are stories that refuse to stay just stories. Some whispers in the dark carry truths we are too afraid to face. Tonight I bring you one such tale, one that lingers in the shadows long after the last word is spoken. But be warned, once you hear it, you may never sleep the same again. The Whispering Room. Dark forests surround the small town of Ravenshade, where an old house stands alone at the end of Hollow Street. No one dares to enter it, but Daniel did. Daniel was 22, a thrill-seeker, always looking for something to scare himself. His friends dared him to spend a night in Blackwood Manor, a house no one in town would go near. Stories about it varied. Some said a family vanished inside. Others swore they heard screams from within. Daniel didn't believe in ghosts, so, with a flashlight and a smirk, he stepped inside. The house smelled of rotting wood and damp air. The floor creaked under his weight as he moved through the grand, abandoned hall. Old paintings hung crooked on the walls, their eyes seeming to follow him. Then he heard it, a whisper. At first he thought it was the wind, but there was no breeze inside. "Go back," Daniel laughed. "Nice try, guys," he called out, thinking his friends had snuck in to scare him. But when he checked his phone, he saw a message from them. "We're outside. The door's just locked. Are you okay?" Daniel's stomach dropped. He rushed back to the front door, but the knob wouldn't turn. Locked. He tried the windows, nailed shut. The whisper came again, closer. "Come upstairs." Despite the dread creeping up his spine, curiosity got the best of him. Slowly he climbed the winding staircase, his flashlight flickering. As he reached the top, he saw a door slightly open, darkness spilling out. He stepped inside. The room was wrong. It was larger than it should be, stretching impossibly far. The air was thick, heavy, like the walls were breathing. There was a bed in the center, covered in an old sheet, and then the sheet moved. Daniel froze. He could hear breathing from underneath. He took a slow step forward and with trembling fingers lifted the sheet. Nothing. Just an empty, rotting mattress. Then he heard it, a whisper, right beside his ear. "You're in my bed." Daniel spun around, his flashlight dying for a second. When it flickered back on, fingerprints appeared on the dusty walls, dozens of them, crawling up toward the ceiling. The air grew colder. The whispers turned into laughter, low, guttural, and many. Then hands burst from the darkness. Rotting, clawed fingers reached for him, from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. They grabbed at his clothes, his skin. Daniel screamed, bolting for the door, but the hallway outside was gone. Instead, there was only more rooms, more whispers. "Stay with us. Forever." He ran blindly, doors slamming behind him, hallways shifting, leading him deeper inside the house. His own screams echoed back at him. Then, suddenly, silence. The next morning, Daniel's friends broke in. They found his flashlight near the entrance, but no sign of Daniel. They searched for hours, but the house was empty, except for one thing, his phone, lying on the floor in the upstairs bedroom. It had a recording. They pressed play, at first just static, then Daniel's voice whispering, "I shouldn't have come here. I hear them. They won't let me leave. If you find this, don't stay. Don't listen." A deep guttural voice interrupted him. "Hush now. It's your turn to whisper." The recording ended, and then, from somewhere inside the house, they heard Daniel's voice, whispering. Daniel's friends, Mark and Lisa, stood frozen, the phone still in Lisa's trembling hands. "Did you hear that?" Mark whispered. The house was silent again, but just as Lisa took a step back, the door slammed shut behind them. The temperature in the room dropped instantly, their breath now visible in the cold air. Mark grabbed the doorknob, twisting and pulling with all his strength. It wouldn't budge. Then the whispering started. At first, soft, like wind through dry leaves. But soon it grew clearer. Daniel's voice. "Help me, please. I can see you, but I can't reach you." Lisa turned to Mark, her face pale. "He's still here." They followed the whispers deeper into the house, past rotting walls and endless doorways that hadn't been there before. The house was shifting, twisting, trapping them. Then, at the end of a dim hallway, they saw him. Daniel stood in the shadows, his back turned. "Daniel!" Lisa cried. He didn't respond. Mark stepped forward, reaching out. His fingers brushed against Daniel's shoulder. Daniel turned. His face was wrong. His eyes were completely black, his mouth slightly open, as if trying to speak. But no sound came out. Then, in their own voices, the whispers came from behind them. "It's too late." A cold hand gripped Lisa's wrist. She screamed as something pulled her backward into the darkness. Mark lunged for her, but his hands passed through empty air. She was gone. The hallway collapsed into darkness, and Mark turned back to Daniel. But Daniel was gone too. Then, a whisper in his ear. "Run." Mark sprinted blindly through the maze of shifting corridors. The whispers were everywhere, surrounding him, calling his name. He saw the front door ahead, open. Pale morning light shone through. With everything he had, Mark ran and threw himself forward. Darkness. He hit the ground, gasping. He was back in the upstairs bedroom, the same room where they had found the phone. Lisa was standing there. "We have to leave," she whispered. Mark's breath caught in his throat. Something was off. Lisa's eyes, too dark, too empty. Then she smiled. "But where would you go?" she whispered in his voice. The door behind him vanished. The walls began to breathe again. The whispers returned, surrounding him, pulling him down into the darkness. And then, silence. 2 days later, the police found the front door of Blackwood Manor wide open. Inside, there was no sign of Daniel, Mark, or Lisa. But on the upstairs bedroom wall, written in fresh red letters, were 4 words. More voices, less room. And if you listen carefully, the house is still whispering. Would you dare to listen? Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the story.